Congress is totally irrelevant. They pat them on the heads. They tell them how important they are, and then they totally ignore them, and Congress does not have the courage to hold any of these people responsible for stealing literally trillions of dollars. They've already put out somewhere between $8 and $9 trillion during the last year. If you haven't read my November newsletter, we simply list from the Federal Reserve Board statistics exactly where the money went. Somewhere, well, at the time I wrote it, I think it was 7.4 trillion, but they put out another trillion since that time, on some of these other, the buddies in Citigroup and in AIG and in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they're really just raping and pillaging our country, and this is what people don't understand. Why would taxpayer money be going for expensive weekends, a $440,000 weekend for about 10 executives from AIG? Why would we be paying exorbitant bonuses to the people in the banks, who have actually brought on this havoc? Why would we be paying dividends to the stockholders of these banks, who are foolish enough to invest in insolvent banks or banks which would become insolvent? Why is it our responsibility to pay the bonus and the dividends? I mean, those banks should have been let go down and just collapse so you could get some honest banks in there. But they're not about to do that, are they?
No, they're not going to do that. And they're going to keep doing what they're doing until we stop them. And obviously the Congress won't do it because they're all paid off or compromised, with the exception of a handful. And our Supreme Court is laughable as the rest of the court system. That's why Mr. Obama is going to be allowed to continue as President of the United States, even though he's a citizen of or was born in Kenya. And they do what they want. And so, Americans, your work's cut out for you. The system is not an avenue for you to go through anymore. It's over. And you just better prepare yourself because, number one, the economy is going to collapse. It's not going to happen overnight. Over the next 2 to 3 years, maybe sooner, but next 2 to 3 years, it'll be deliberately collapsed. The big international corporations and the insurance and finance, Wall Street, banking will all be saved, except for the people who are not part of the Illuminati. And the country will experience 35% unemployment. And incidentally, the new figures on unemployment are long-term unemployment, 17.5%. These are government figures. The intermediate, that's the U4 figure. The U6 figure is 13.5%. Those are the people out of work who have already collected the limit at this time of unemployment, and so they're on their own, so to speak. And that's 13.5%, which is probably the more truthful figure or usable figure, because there's a lot of people in the U4 17.5% category that go back to 1990. And the third figure, 7.2%, is totally irrelevant. And so these are official figures. So the U6, the intermediate term unemployment, in reality is probably somewhere around 15 to 16% already. Already. And we're not really into this. Now, we've been in a recession for 2 years. That's February 2 years ago. I said we're going in. This is it. Besides Gary Schilling and Navini, the professor, we're the only ones that I know of that made that announcement. And our government says that we're still not in a recession, if you can believe that. Still, 95% of analysts and economists say we're not in recession. I mean, these people must be out of their minds. And we're really in phase one of perhaps 3 or 4 phases. And phase 2 will be hyperinflation, real hyperinflation, along with stagnation. Phase 3 will be when hyperinflation dies and deflation, depression take over. I expect that's 2 or 3 years away. And when that happens, you are not going to believe what's going to happen.
Well, I'm afraid
the United States will be upside down.
I'm afraid there's going to be tremendous unrest in our cities, and I think it's all planned. They've got their agitators already out there. Well, Bob, you pick up the story.
Because there is no avenue for the people, and of course, this sort of thing works both ways. You can control Congress and the courts and the entire system, but you put the public in a corner by doing that, and the public will react like rats will. They'll attack. Now, I think that the people behind the scenes controlling things thinks that they can handle that. I get news for them. They're not going to handle it. If they think they're going to take people's weapons away from them and their gold and silver or their home or their cars, they're sadly mistaken. America will have a revolution, and I see nowhere else for it to head but there. When you have 35% unemployment, and we're not that far away from it. We're halfway there. And they're just recognizing that perhaps 6 months ago a recession started. Give me a break. They're in serious trouble.
Well,
what they're going to do is they're starting a backdoor war. Now, the Bush administration, that part of the Illuminist gang, didn't want a direct attack on Iran because they get blamed for it. And so you saw the news that came out today that said, oh, Mr. Bush stopped the attack that Israel wanted to make. So what they did, in reality, was this backdoor maneuver by going into Gaza, sucking in Lebanon, eventually Syria, and then Iran. And they expect to have, this giant war going on. And you get Pakistan, which will be involved as well. You've got Afghanistan, which is an ongoing movement. And you may even get India involved. And so you're going to have a conflagration raging. And, of course, the government will say, well, we need more troops, so let's have a draft, men and women both, and let's ship them off to get them killed. And that's where we're headed.
Well, I hope that we do not have civil unrest, because if we do, that will just give them the excuse that they want to impose a dictatorship, because I really believe that there are people who want a dictatorship in America, and they want one throughout the world. And I'm sure they have their agitators out there doing everything they can to whip the people up into a frenzy. And our job is to get people to understand what's going on, but to realize, of course, that there's so many more of us than there are of them. And what we need to do is expose them, and then we need to expose the powerful spiritual forces that energize the wicked people within the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers, the Council on Foreign Relations, a group of 30, which are subversive organizations dedicated to the destruction of the sovereignty of our country. And that's my definition of a subversive organization. People must understand that these people today control our government. It's time we took America back. Well, Bob, as far as the knocking the gold down, how soon do you think it's going to come back again? Do we have any idea? Can they keep it down at in the low 800s for a few months, do you think, before it begins to come back again? We hear that Merrill Lynch has come out and said that it's going to be well up over, probably $1,100-$1,200, by the middle of next year, probably $2,000 by the end of this year. What are your thoughts?
It's possible, but I don't think it's probable. I think that gold is ready to go, and they know it. I don't think that they have the gold to continue to suppress the market. Either they don't want to let any more go. They're using the derivative market to do it, and that's in part what J.P. Morgan's all about.
Hold on, Tom. We'll be back here in just a moment. Our guest is Bob Chapman. Our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And, of course, we were simply talking about the manipulation of gold prices by the Working Group on Financial Markets, the so-called plunge protection team, and how they've artificially lowered the price of gold. And, of course, Bob thinks it's going to come back again. And then his remark was, well, that's what the fall, progressive fall in the stock value of J.P. Morgan Chase, which incidentally is, what is that, about the second largest bank we have, Bob?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, fine. That's what the steady fall in the price of the stock of J.P. Morgan's Chase is all about. Would you like to pick up from there?
Yes, and so you have the five, what they call money center banks. Now they call them legacy banks. And, what that means, I really don't know in this case. But that's what they're calling them on Wall Street. And these legacy banks are all broke. The major brokerage houses, they're all broke. And the whole thing is a big lie. You saw the biggest insurance company in the world, AIG, go under. They're bailing them out. Why? Because of their derivatives and the fact that they've been a cover and a working black operation for the CIA since the Second World War. And it's also a money laundering. It was a money laundering organization.